Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Conjurer, Unself, out October 24th on Nuclear Blast. The album has 9 tracks, 45 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are an English sludge post-metal band. If I was to use a nautical comparison, this album really feels like you're out at sea and you're not quite sure where you're headed because there's no lighthouse, there's a ton of fog, and you just don't know exactly where the shore is. This album gives you a little bit of that experience because it lacks direction as far as what the overall style and structure of this album is all about. Now, because of the record having a sound that is very immersive, that allows you to lose yourself within it, lacking direction doesn't become a problem. The two actually work really well with one another because you don't necessarily want to reach a destination and you're not really concerned on how you're going to get to that destination. You're more concerned about living in the moment, enjoying the present, enjoying the now, trying to extrapolate as much as you can out of each and every single second, and allowing the overall emotional side of the record to really take control, take the steering wheel, and just take you where it wants to go. That is, in a nutshell, how this album is put together. I think the design of the record is actually really well crafted for the sound and experience that the record provides. As far as that sound is concerned, overall, this is a very dark, not necessarily sounding record, but a very dark feeling album. It's a very emotionally driven, a very emotionally drenched record. And when you have an album that has that emotion behind it, and then you add to that the overall sludginess, I would go as far as to say even the doom elements that this album has, it's easy to see where the darkness starts to creep through. The ability to create a little bit of light here and there within the sound allows the overall darker side of the record to become even more noticeable, even more protruding, if you will. And I felt that the dichotomy that exists between those two elements, that yin and yang that this album puts together, really allows the record to have an incredible life of its own. And it allows the record at times to feel extremely cold, but also feel extremely warm. And I felt that dynamic, it's so well crafted, song in and song out, that you almost need one in order for the other one to work. This album wouldn't be as sludgier, as doomier, as dark as it is if it wasn't, for example, for the clean vocals, if it wasn't, for example, for the keys, or even the acoustic guitar sound that exists throughout this album. Those three main elements of light and brightness, almost like a few windows or doors that open throughout the walkway of a very dark corridor, is what allows everything else to be as impactful as it is. Because if the overall record felt very sludgy, very doomy, very dark, it would almost suffocate the listener, and it would not allow you to see the texture that exists within that experience, and would not allow you to see all the richness that also exists within that experience. It would become very one-dimensional, very linear all the way through. So adding clean vocals, adding keys, adding acoustic guitars, all of these elements, all of these subtle elements really help break the album through, help break the songs through, and at the same time creating a little bit more of an easier to digest experience. The album doesn't give itself a chance to become cumbersome from a sonic and even a vocal standpoint. And I think that's extremely important for a record like this. Records that are extremely immersive, records that have this sort of sludgier, doomier, darker sound that almost work as sonic quicksand are so easy to become overwhelming for the listener, and at the end of the record you're ready to go somewhere else and do something else because the album just took too much out of you, not just from a listening perspective but also from an emotional perspective. So adding those nuances, adding the keys, adding the clean vocals, the acoustic guitars, definitely helps soften the blow and makes the album more dynamic all around. But like I said, more important than that, it makes the album a little bit easier to digest. The guitar sound is excellent on this record. I really love those additions of those acoustic elements. It's such a key and it's such an important aspect of the album, but the overall guitar sound on this record is definitely one of the spinal cords, if not the spinal cord, of the overall sound presence that the album offers. The drums are very consistent. I wouldn't say that the drums are thick. They don't offer a thick experience, but they definitely consist and adding heaviness to the sound, to the overall sound, and they work really well one-on-one with the heavier side of the guitar sound in order to create that wall, that presence, that sound that moves towards the listener in a very significant way. Once it comes to the bass, I thought the bass on this record helps more on the sludgier side to create a certain sludgier, groovier experience, and that is also important because when you have that sound coming through, peeking through, you also adding to the level of darkness that the tracks have, and that allows that darkness overall to simmer and then kind of bleed its way all the way to the top. So every single element on this record, you be the bass, guitars, or drums, while not necessarily overshining one another, and it's very rarely that one takes consistently the lead, all of them play an important role in what the overall puzzle it's all about. Once you get into the vocals, I love the clean vocals, I love the harsh vocals. It's one of those rare records where both styles offer a very emotional experience, at times a very somber experience. Just one feels a little bit more introspective, the other one feels like it exteriorizes that emotion a lot better, in a more angrier way, if you will. But the dynamics that exist between the two are excellent, and the fact that both offer a very similar overall vibe, it's also awesome, because normally that's not the case on records like this. You have more of a difference between them in terms of what you're getting out of them. So this makes for a very interesting album all around. Like I said, an album that is not about how you navigate it, because I feel like that's nearly impossible. It's just about going with the flow, or going where the current is taking you. But from an overall perspective, this album really allows you to just turn off the lights, press play, and lose yourself in it and just enjoy the emotional ride that puts forward. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I'm going to start off with There Is No Warmth. Heavy sound, guitars, drums, bass, everything just feels really powerful, really heavy, really thick with a lot of fuzz. The harsh vocals add an emotional side to the overall heaviness of the track, almost unhinged without going there, but almost there in terms of how it drips in emotion. The clean vocals add a more menacing experience, a more darker, calmer, but still on the edge. Once again, not unhinged, but on the edge of kind of losing it through that sense of almost fake calm. And it's a really interesting aspect that they add to how this track comes about. It's a very aggressive sounding song. It's a song that has a lot of movement considering how sludgy it is. Then you have a track like the Searing Glow. Heavy, fluid, definitely more fluid than There Is No Warmth. Definitely more dynamic, a lot more movement. And what it gains in movement, it doesn't lose anything as far as what the overall heaviness of the track is all about. It has movement from the beginning all the way to the end. The vocals are super consistent, and I really like how this track moves along. There's a really cool bass bridge with clean vocals. That portion of the track really sets the track apart, and it really sets up the difference and the uniquenesses that exist within the sound and within the vocal performance, not just of this song, but of the overall record. The dynamics between that light, that yin and yang, that light and that darkness on this song are so visible, are so well integrated, but you can still see how unique both of them are while providing a very similar output. Last but definitely not least, This World Is Not My Home. It opens up with acoustic guitar and clean vocals, super warm, super haunting. It really sets the table for what comes after, which is a more heavier, sludgier, doomier sound. The harsh vocals are as haunting as the clean vocals are. This is just one of those songs that musically there's a lot of ebbs and flows, vocally as well, but the vibe and the experience and the atmosphere coming out of both of them is very similar. They're just coming from different directions with different appetites, if you will. The melody that this track also holds is super haunting as well. It's a very haunting track all around, regardless of where you go, regardless of clean or harsh, regardless of clean or harsh sound or clean or harsh vocals. It's one of my favorite songs on the album because it kind of goes full circle to how the record opens up with Unself, starting off almost like a country song. So the album kind of goes full circle. It allows to have that same sense of calm and that sense of hauntedness that you saw at the beginning, it comes back around again to close off on that same note. So you feel like you've been struggling within yourself throughout the entire album, but in the end you end up exactly where you started. Great way to finish off this record. This is it, Conjurer with Unself, out October 24th on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next one. Take care, guys.